Team House with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
And that was about as good as it got. So yeah, so having done 3 tours with the Rangers and like 1 tour with conventional, 10th Mountain, that 10th Mountain tour, man, was the hardest thing I ever did in my life.
Yeah,
it really.
When you look back on it, though, Ray, I mean, maybe there's a tendency we all have to romanticize these things to a certain point. But do you feel like in those 15 months you did get to experience the exhilaration of true leadership, being a infantry platoon leader in that sort of environment, as austere as it was? I mean, like, it sounds like you guys got your man card. I mean, in the process of all of this.
Oh yeah, it was. You couldn't ask for better conditions for somebody who really wanted to fight.
Right.
We were out there basically like platoon and company size elements, completely on our own.
right.
It was like basically it's senior NCOs, lieutenants, and captains like really running a war.
Yeah.
And you don't see anybody else, man.
Right.
You're just totally out there, like. Yeah.
And you weren't
it was awesome.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And you weren't just because, this leads into like the first big mission. And, we kind of talk about the idea of measuring up in the man card because that comes into play in your first operation out there. You're out there in a patrol base doing patrol base activities for what, like 3-4 days?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that operation and like how it started and what happened?
Yeah, we had some like our first KIAs in our battalion, and so we had good intel of like where some of that activity had originated, and so we went up into and this is before we really like lived for a very long time in the Korengal. We kind of were in the Korengal, and then we got assigned to go to a mission in the Waterpoor Valley, which is also another, very notorious area. So I went in, it was my platoon. We basically air assaulted in onto this ridge line, and we were supposed to, hit back at some of the insurgent groups that were responsible for these bigger attacks down on the Pesh River and that had killed our guys. So we're up there and we know the enemy's like active all over this area, and we're looking for them. We're running ambushes, like straight up Ranger School patrols, man. I mean, it was badass, like, ambushes, movement contacts, like all that cool stuff. But we just can't find them, like we can't quite find them. And, we've got sign out there, we kind of know we're in the area, but anyway, they ended up finding us. And I still, just like diagnosing that, I'm not 100% sure, man, how they kind of slipped in just at the right time. But the Afghan, the sort of, the enemy in that part of Konar was like notorious for this kind of thing, right? Where you're like, even if you're super dialed in and you're alert and you're doing all the right things, you're aggressively patrolling, they still have a way of finding you and kind of catching you at the wrong moment. So they came up on our patrol base. And I think the principal thing I did wrong, right, was I actually kept our patrol base in the same like general location for about 3 days. Mm-hmm. And so that was just long enough. So that's like, that would have got you failed out of Ranger School right there, man. Fuck that one up bad. You don't keep your patrol base more than 24 hours in one location because it can't allow the enemy to pinpoint you. Mm-hmm. But I kept it there for about 3 days. And there was a few reasons I did that. I won't necessarily like get into all the like why we, because it'll sound like I'm rationalizing things.
I don't know, because I don't think you mentioned it in your book, but I'll just say a why so that it doesn't look like you're trying to save face. When you're doing movements like that in that kind of terrain, picking up and moving a patrol base is another major event. And it's hard to keep your guys awake, alert, fit to fight.
And they're all getting dehydrated,
if you're just
around.
Beating them up every time you move, because in Ranger School, yeah, you can move, 10 clicks or 5 clicks or whatever and set up another patrol base in a few hours. But in a place like that, a few hours might get you down the side of a mountain, and it might be like 600 meters. So, I mean, I imagine that might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, like it's an incredible expenditure of energy to pick up all your stuff when you're living out of a rucksack and move. And so we were tied to like one HLZ helicopter like resupply point. Like we had really one that was viable, and we were sort of tied to it. So, you know, here I am. I'm going to go ahead and explain why I did it.
Yeah, no, please.
Was right. So I was like, I don't want to put us like too far away from our resupply point.
Right.
Because all I'm doing is making it just super difficult for us to come and get another 5 days of food and water and batteries and all that other shit we need. So I said, we're going to stay kind of in this area. And the way I had it in my head was, okay, we're getting our resupply basically in 24 hours. So on the 4th day, and and then we'll move the patrol base. Like once we're all resupplied and we're not tied to the HLZ again, then I'll move the patrol base. And that was basically, I had planned to move the next day, and that night we got hit, you know, really, really, really hard.
Well,
so,
and Ray, here's the thing though. I mean, had you moved the patrol base and then sent guys out to get the resupply and they would have gotten hit, you would have said, I shouldn't have moved the patrol base. Those are the decisions that leaders have to make in combat, and everybody can Monday morning quarterback it, especially the people who make the decisions, right?
It's tough, right? Like there's very rarely like a clear, like black and white, like you're in this just gray zone all the time, and nobody's giving you feedback. Nobody. Like it's, you know, like you got your platoon sergeant, you might have some really solid squad leaders you can kind of like really have like a good like tactical like deliberation with. But, you know, it's not like there's some, you know, your company commander's right there with you, or some super salty, you know, battalion commander and sergeant major there kind of going, you know, this is the right thing to do there at LT. So it's totally your call. It really is. And there's no right answer, man. But you can't stare at it, right? You got to make a call and you got to execute. So, yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out, David. And just for both you guys, Jack, like I haven't had like a conversation at this kind of level of detail for a really long time, man. This feels good. So thanks for that.
Yeah, of course, man.
We appreciate you, man.
So
we appreciate
tell us what happened though that night. I mean, Charlie got in the wire.
No, so it was like right at dark, right? Classic like Afghan guerrilla tactic, right? Like they kind of hit like right at stand to like last night, kind of late in the night. Or, you know, kind of it was getting dark, right? And you know, we had a fairly good position tactically, right? Like where we weren't, you know, we were on a ridge line, and there was kind of humps in that ridge, right? So they weren't like way up above us, which I was in a lot of firefights like that, where you know, plunging fire down on the top of your helmet. But man, they got in close. So, I mean, just classic, you know, attack with good support by fire element, machine guns, RPGs. And then they had a maneuver element that came in and got right up on top of us, man. So we're throwing hand grenades.
Wow.
And it was nasty. I mean, it was, you know, and what we kind of, and tactically, like the way we operated in Afghanistan, like, you know, we like throw squads out there. And because a lot of the contacts really were, you know, they're kind of machine gun fights, you know, and they weren't, you know, weren't close in, like you weren't thinking a lot about getting overrun. Like it's not how they necessarily fought. But in this particular case, they brought everybody they could get on the horn for probably 500 miles, it felt like. And they came after us, man, and tried to just run us over. And, you know, it was a really intense firefight. It really was. Yeah. So throwing grenades and, you know, everybody's in the fight, man. The whole platoon's like throwing down, and I'm the lieutenant. I'm shooting, you know, which is like, I think I was breaking a rule there.
So like the PB is like going to get overrun. It sounds like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the patrol base, man, is
Holy
they're
shit.
like, they got that maneuver element in where they were coming to just take us out. So came all the way into machine gun range. We, we knocked him back, and that's when I got wounded from a rocket propelled grenade, and so it hit a tree like this. Me and one of my team leaders were using this little skinny tree, man, because we kind of got caught. Like I was checking positions, right, like what you're supposed to be doing, but I kind of got caught moving between positions, and the only thing was like, and man, I was like, there's getting shot at, and then there's like they're shooting at you.
Right. There's accurate fire. Right.
Yeah, and it's you. You're like, that fucking gunner has me dialed in, man.
Yeah.
He's trying to kill me. Me. Like that, there's that kind of fire, right? Mm-hmm. That's like truly, that's who you just like, I'm not moving. So anyway, so me and my team leader, Langmaster, we were like hiding in this little skinny tree, and then not hiding behind it. We were shooting, but we were using this thing for cover, man. And we were we were like right on top of each other behind that thing, because we just didn't have much room. And then this RPG, man, hit the tree like dead on, right? Like it detonated, within like 3 feet of us, right? Like it hit the tree kind of up higher, and we're like in the prone shooting. And then, so we're in the fireball, like we're inside the fireball. And like, I just remember, it's like white flash and like, the fire, like the heat of it, and we both got kind of thrown, and just man, it was just nuts. It was crazy. I mean, you're like, at first, obviously you're like I'm definitely lost some body parts from that one.
Right.
I don't feel it yet.
Right.
You kind of do the class, like you kind of see it in the movies,
Yeah.
You
Check your balls. Are they still there?
Yeah. Okay. I got my balls. I got my legs. And you kind of come back to it, man, come back around. It's like, and then you can hear the fight again. You're like, oh yeah, I just remembered that I'm about to get overrun on a fucking mountaintop in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta do something. I gotta do something about it. I can't just lay here and be like, oh dude, I got shrapnel all over my body, So that was like my first big fight. I've been in contact before in Afghanistan. Like we'd had some little firefights, some little stuff. But like I said, it's like, it's getting shot at, man. Pot shots, little pulse of machine gun fire here and there. There's that kind of getting shot at. And then there's like, they're shooting at me. And then there's just straight up getting a whipping.
Right.
Like superior firepower, overwhelming firepower from the enemy.
Yeah, this is like Viet Cong hitting the fire base type stuff. Like this, I mean, it's a wild. That so few of these stories ever kind of really made it out to the rest of us is kind of stunning.
Right, and what I think was interesting about it too was like where there are a few of those like overrun stories. I can't remember what's the battle. It was in Nuristan. They made the movie about it. It's an awesome movie. But
Restrepo, yeah.
Well,
the Restrepo is Korengal too, right?
Yeah. So, but they're like you're in built up positions.
Right. You're not in a fire base.
Yeah, you're not like you're in a fire base. Like dude, we're in like Ranger graves, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in a patrol base.
Trying to hold down. Yeah. Like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was wild, man.
So what happened after you almost got blown limb from limb?
So I pulled it together and, was like heavily concussed and you don't know it, right? It's like, you see this all the time on like, football games on the sidelines, the concussion protocol. We weren't doing the concussion protocol.
Right.
It was like, you're kind of loopy, man. But it was like, dude, we got to do something about this. And we maneuvered, man. Like we knocked off the enemy assault element. Like we went and pushed back. We pushed into them and knocked them off the attack. And I think that's when it kind of crumbled for for the enemy, right? Where they're like, all right, it's not going to work out. Like, we're not going to be able to overrun them. So I think at that point they're like, all right, we don't want to just do, a drawn out fight up here. So they ended up withdrawing at that point. So then I went to, mortars, artillery into that mode, right? And so the idea was, okay, we'll cut off escape routes or, just try to hit them on the exfil with 155s. And, that's kind of where we went next. That, and then, casualties, right? So we had casualties, myself included. We had two other guys that were seriously hit, and then 2 additional guys that were like lightly wounded. And that was the first time I saw, like, so Sergeant Langmesser, good dude, just great American. He was next to me when that RPG blew up. He got a shrapnel bath, like way worse than I did. And man, he was like, seeing him, like seeing this super solid dude. And he was like, I remember, how like pale he was and like just kind of the look on his face, and it like shook me up, man. Like, not only was I like pretty messed up, but like seeing a really strong dude, like looking like he wasn't like he wasn't gonna make it. He ended up being fine. He came back, but it shook me up. And then one of our guys, man, he got like the back of his foot basically blown off, and so he lost a lot of blood. Just hit him kind of in the heel and made a huge mess. And so anyway, man, it was cleaning up the casualties, and then like I was absolutely certain based on the nature of the attack that they were coming back. Like I was like, dude, they have so many fucking dudes. Like there's no way they're not coming back. Like they're going to try again. I was 100% convinced of that. And so we put, it got real dark, and then, it started to feel better. It was like, okay, we, like now we're under night vision. Like we're doing pretty good now. And so I put an ambush out. I was incapacitated. I could not walk. So I had a squad go out.
I want to interrupt you real quick here, if you don't mind. Has the medevac come in yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a couple things that we need to talk about that I think that our viewers should know. One, when you ordered